Greetings on Wamabaga Wednesday.
Hello.
I'm Merritt Malouf Plumb with the Energy Center and Thrive Yoga and Wellness.
And I'm a very holiday, spirity, Christmassy elf today, Jennifer Dixon with Thrive Yoga and Wellness. We are almost finished with our last 90 days challenge. We've only got one more week after this, and I'm super pumped about what we've got in store for you guys next week. It's really cool. She's got some magic tricks up her sleeves about how we can incorporate all of these things we've learned over the last 12 weeks. It will be 12 weeks next week, and into our personal practice. And so definitely be sure to subscribe to this channel, like it, of course, and then come back next Wednesday for Wamabaga Wednesday.
But and what is next week? I thought Aether was the last thing.
Yeah, but we have one more extra week. Remember you talked about it.
We're going to just bring it all together.
Yeah. Yes. So next week, we kind of summarize it all. And then this week, we are talking about our last element, which is technically the first element of the 5 elements.
Well, depending on what discipline you're looking at. Some ancient texts show it as the first because nothing else could exist without it because it's creation. And then in Ayurvedics, it's the last. So it's different.
Interesting. So today we're talking about ether, sometimes spelled with an A, like Aether. And it's not the stuff that if you guys have seen in movies back in the earlier part of the 19th century that they would put over your nose to make you go to sleep. That is not it. It's actually there's deeper meanings to it. And people have been studying ether, sometimes known as space, based for thousands of years. Aristotle talked about it. Einstein talks about it. Some of the
Tao. The Tao Te Ching.
Yep, it's in all of the ancient major philosophies, and it's been studied and included in physics and our sciences as well. So it's a really cool element, otherwise known as ether.
Yes, it's the element of divine science.
Ooh.
The Greeks believed it was the breath of the gods, that we breathe air, but the gods breathe ether in space.
Which is a really neat thought.
And it's what all of creation comes from. It's what we're created with.
Yeah.
The ether.
From the biblical standpoint, in Genesis, it talks about in the beginning, there was nothing. There was a void, and God created from that void the heavens and the earth. So if you think about it,
and breathed life into.
He breathed life into us, and so that was a deep thought when I was studying the ether this week. It talked about we've got inside of our body. I watched one video on YouTube by Sadhguru, and if I remember, I'll try to link it in here. And he's like, inside your body, you've got solids. Like if you need to go number 2, if you're constipated, you've got solids. You've got liquids. You've got gas, the air, and fire is that heat. But you wouldn't have life if the air was sucked out of you. And that's that space between it all is the ether, according to Sadhguru, which I was like, whoa!
Well, and it also goes back to that whole creation thing. God breathed the air into us. That was ether that created us.
Oh,
so that kind of goes back into that. And all the spiritual text, any spiritual text you read urges us inward to silence, to get in alignment with that place of ether, which goes beyond the time-space continuum. So it's not limited to our bodies or the labels or identities that we've given ourselves on this earth walk. It's what we were before all that came to be, the eternal part of us.
Something that is really cool about the ether element and tying it back somewhat into meditation, since that's what you teach tonight at 7:45, and our yoga practice is we get to experience a little bit of that ether when we calm down all of the waves in our mind. So in yoga, that's called the vrittis, right? All of those thoughts. Every time that you are not at peace, when the squirrels are going like crazy, it's disrupting the ocean of our mind. And so when you get into the meditative state, like with the lead meditation class, or with a really great asana practice where your body is moving and there's nothing else going on inside your brain, that's like a glimpse of that ether, because the mind is finally calm. And it's so beautiful in that space.
Well, and meditating on that space too, and just like letting that space and that ether element fill you can take you to a very magical and spiritual place. That's how the mystics do it.
Huh.
And that's also how when I say I'm sending energy, I'm going to do medicine on you, but you're not here. That's how the medicine goes. It goes through the ether element to you, which again transcends time and space.
Interesting, because there's more than, in geometry we talk about a triangle has 180 degrees, right? Because we think about it as plane. It's like two dimensionals, right? But if you made a really big triangle, like a couple of miles long on one edge, you would notice that there's more than 180 degrees, and that's because of the curvature of the earth. So there's the whole point of that is there's deeper dimensions. There's more than the 2, the 3. We have in time kind of transcends even the 3 dimensions that we live in time, whereas we are held in the confines of time, but even through that and past that, I imagine is where the ether is. It transcends even that.
Absolutely right. Aristotle also discovered that ether was circular. It's what moves the planets.
Oh, yeah.
And the earth, or the planets and the
he hypothesized before,
planets and the stars.
Yep, he hypothesized even before Columbus proved that the earth was round or whatever. He hypothesized that all the planets moved in circular directions and in orbits, basically. And this is like hundreds of years before we had the science to actually back it up. And I think that's really cool.
But in the 1900s, science disproved ether. Science doesn't really believe in ether. The science, the Western science.
I saw something about how they did the light traveled without it, but then it's still, Einstein still believed in it with that theory of relativity. It's just trying to come up with the science to back it, I guess.
Right. And you can't find, these are the kind of things you can't find in science because it goes beyond that. It won't fit in a box.
Yeah. Or, we don't like looking at it. That's the whole theory of entropy. Every branch of science believes that we are slowly unraveling, except for biology, because biology wants to keep us in a square box, like you said. So that's a slippery slope, probably for another episode.
Yes. Let's don't do a slippery slope today.
I'll try to keep it in the straight and narrow. So ether is that space between the elements, right?
Yes.
So
it's the center of all. And that's why in meditation we're trying to get to the center. Because then the circular motion can move everything else in alignment.
I read that in Ayurveda, the sense organ for ether is your ears. Because from the creation was the sound, and that's even kind of biblical. God said, and it became. And then the action organ is the tongue, the mouth, talking.
Interesting. And I also saw that the chakra is the throat chakra.
Hearing your piece.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it was also interesting when I was looking at the seasons and how to strengthen the ether element. Some sources said it was winter, the season was winter. Other sources said that and this resonates with me the most, as you will understand why, is that it's not associated with any cold or hot, winter, fall, spring, summer. Ether can't contain that because it doesn't fit into any boxes.
Interesting.
And I like that. And foods are like the bitters. Again, the bitters, turmeric and things that are bitter.
So the thing that resonated with me and with having winter being the ether season was one is because winter's freaking cold, and ether is not associated with heat, right? It facilitates the fire, but without the fire, there's no heat. So that made sense to me, especially because I'm freezing all the time now that it's winter. But it's also like outside, there is this space between life. The trees aren't dead.
Right.
But they're also not full of the life that we know of.
Right. It's getting in that gap where the renewal has, because like without the gap in between the notes, we wouldn't have a song. We'd just have one consistent. So that space in between things is where the medicine lies, where the yogi lies where the magic is.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. That space between, that calmness between the things.
Yeah, and when I was first teaching meditation, I used to say, get in the gap. You need to get in the gap. That's when you'll figure it out, because we just get so like obsessed and trying to figure things out, and we're looking at this and looking at that and processing it with all our friends, and that's good because we need all those things to discern. But in order to really get there, we have to get in the gap.
I love that
space in between.
I love the idea of that too, because that space in between is where there's no action, where you're just in you're just being. Mm-hmm. Because in every other time of the day, before this video started, we were running around. After this video ends, we were doing something, but right now we're here in an ether standpoint. That gap where you're just sitting there and being is the closest to that peace.
Yeah, let's just stay here.
Yeah, I like it here. It's nice. It's very, very nice. There was something else I was going to talk about with ether. What's your next note?
Well, I wrote down some yoga poses.
Oh, yeah. And so if you're feeling really, so like with Ayurveda, when you talked about yoga, when you're feeling really like you can't ground yourself in Ayurveda, like your ether is too strong in if you have vata in your vata is mostly made up of ether, right? And so if you're like floating around too much, what Ayurveda says to do is to eat the heavy foods. Like eat the denser things to kind of bring you back down.
Right. But ether's not really necessarily about being grounded, as I understand it. It's more about being neither grounded or spacey. It's about being within, and you're connected to your eternal, I call it isness.
I like that.
And the isness is the ether, and so we go beyond time space too. We're eternal, vast, mighty beings. And if we stay too grounded, we're not going to touch ether. If we're too spaced out, we're not going to touch ether. We have to be in the middle.
I would agree with that.
It's that center we were talking about.
Yeah, that finding that space in the middle of it. No, I would agree with that. I think more with the diet ideas is more just because we all know those people that feel like you've got to hold them down with the kite, the vatas that have a lot of the air in them.
Yes.
So the thing that I read was like if the vata is too much ether inside the vata, ground them down with heavy foods. And I was like, but that also goes back to the season of winter being ether season, because from the way back when did we stock up on all the food in the fall at the end of harvest?
Oh, yes.
To create
That's true.
the storage that we need
so that
to
we
survive.
Can get down into that winter reflection and that silence. I think winter's a beautiful time for silence because the trees are bare, they're silent, there's not leaves blown in the wind. But we can also use the fall as a segue into aligning with the ether element. However, I still believe that the ether element really doesn't have
because it's between it
season.
all. It's above it all.
Now, for Ayurvedics, that is the way they teach.
Yeah.
And all these spiritual texts teach things a little differently, but it all comes back to that same: to be in alignment with ether. Be still, be silent, reconnect to that original nature that was you before you came up with all these labels, before you learned separation.
Oh, yeah.
Before our parents taught us, believe this, don't believe that, this is pretty, this is ugly, that's blue, this is gray. Beyond all of those labels.
Yeah.
And coming back into just the pure consciousness.
No, I think that's beautiful.
That's where ether is.
No, I agree. I think that's beautiful. So you were going to talk about some yoga poses for ether.
Yes. So, the ether yoga. And I noticed other than one, all of the poses had the head up. The head was looking up. I thought that was interesting, except for the corpse pose. Oh, and except for the shoulder stand.
Well, even in shoulder stand, your eyes are looking up.
Yeah.
In corpse pose, your eyes are still looking up. So there's still that correlation.
Right.
So she's got...
So lion pose, star pose, camel pose,
fish pose,
shoulder stand, legs up the wall.
Everybody's favorite at Thrive Yoga and Wellness
Yes.
is legs up the wall.
And the corpse pose. Those are just a few. There's
Yeah.
more, but those were just a few that I kind of recognize. And I love the star pose because you're literally standing like a star. And that I can see where that would really align you with the ether element, especially if you were doing it alone and you were really in a divine place, a sacred space. You can see how that would be powerful.
That's interesting because in Ashtanga, the standing series, about midway through, you go into what's called separate leg stretching, Prasarita Padottanasana. And
I love how you can say all those words.
I'm a yoga teacher. I'm supposed to talk some words in Sanskrit. You get me like into chanting and then I start sounding like silly. But the way you get into it is you're in samastitihi. You're in attention basically at the top of your mat. And then you take a big step. You take a big step to the back with your right hand, your right foot rather, and you're making basically the star pose. And it feels beautiful because at that point you've already done you've done some sun salutations and things of that nature. So you take up all of this space. You embody, I guess, the ether, and then you forward fold. And I always love that transition because I'm taking up space,
feel good.
and then I'm bringing it back in, and it feels amazing. I don't know.
Amazing.
I don't know if that's like truly dealing with ether, but when you brought the star pose, that's what I thought because I did that in my practice today.
I guarantee you it does at the root of it. If you studied it, down to the root of it.
I'd believe it. I would totally believe it because it just feels so good. You're expanding and then you're grounding down. And that is one of my favorite transitions in the sequence.
Yeah.
But
in Tai Chi, there's one that sinks the Chi and you bring it up and then come down. And that always felt very sacred to me too, in alignment with ether.
So like the sun salutation when you're going up.
Kind of like it, but yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We've been playing with the idea of bringing Tai Chi into the studio. Did you know that?
I love Tai Chi. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've emailed. There's a place in Chattanooga that offers it at different places in the area, and I've emailed them. I've only emailed them once. Not my typical greasy or squeaky wheel style. There's been a lot of stuff going on, but I have emailed them to see if they'd be interested in coming and teaching a class with us because I feel like there would be some complements between the two practices.
Yes, there is. There really is. Tai Chi and Qigong are two of my favorite types of exercise because, of course, yoga, but I just have done those so much longer. And it's real easy for me to just break into a Tai Chi exercise because I've done it for so long.
Interesting. I have a funny, unrelated to ether Tai Chi story. Would you like to hear it?
Mm-hmm.
So many, many moons ago, my mother used to make my father go to the Y while she swam laps. My dad's not a exercise person. He's not at all. He's always joked and said, if you saw him running, look behind him. There's somebody chasing him. Doesn't like to exercise. In his defense, he's always done construction, so he's always been a very active guy. So my dad would go, he's got 3 herniated discs in his low back, and he's had surgery to get them fixed, so he's always in pain. So while Mama was swimming laps, my dad would go to the therapy pool and do stretches. He called them his stretches. And my dad kind of looks like Kramer. I love my dad, but like you can imagine me with short hair, kind of a very intense looking dude. And he was in the therapy pool doing his stretching. And I knew that they'd been doing this. They've been doing this for months. And one day at work, this is many years ago, oh my gosh, close to 20 years ago, a person that didn't know my dad, didn't know that I had any sort of relation, he was talking about how the night before at the Y, he had like 6 kids. His kids were in the therapy pool and they were being wild and crazy, and he felt so bad because they kept splashing this man doing Tai Chi in the pool. And I was like, that caught my ear because they were at the Y in the therapy pool because that's where the kids go. And then there's this man doing Tai Chi, and I was like, wait a second. What'd that man look like? And he described my father. And I was like, oh man, that's my dad. Don't worry about it. So apparently everybody at the Y in the early 2000s thought my dad was a Tai Chi artist or master because he would go to the pool to do his stretching. Totally random, not anything to do with ether. I am really good about taking us on squirrel trips. Sorry.
That's okay. So as we look at bringing this divine awareness into our yoga practices and into our lives, what can we look forward to at Thrive Yoga and Wellness in the new year? Maybe Tai Chi.
Maybe some Tai Chi. We also have coming up, it'll probably not start, I was hoping to start it in January, but because I'm trying to go train with Manju in February, it'll probably start the middle of February. We're going to do an 8-week self-defense course as well. It's very near and dear to my heart. Our studio is mostly females, and let's be honest, we're all distracted. We've got this phone and we're looking down, and I'm every bit as much to blame. And I've never been taught any self-defense, and so we're going to offer the very first self-defense class. It'll be 8 weeks long, and it's included in it's like a regular class pass. So your gold members, you don't have to pay anything else. If you have a class pass, that class will do it. Otherwise, you can just pay by the drop-in. If you don't have a membership and you want to pay for all 8 up front, I've got to figure out a packaging for that. But that is, I'm hoping to help empower us as a community to know what's going on around us, yes, and then feel like we have a voice and a say in what happens to us if something negative were to happen. Because I don't know if I would know how to respond.
Right. So is it going to be, you have to come to all 8 weeks, or is it going to be...
That each week will build on each other, but you don't, if you miss a week, they're not going to say, no, you can't come. To me, it's more important that you're getting the skills. And we'll have... the leader will be Larry. He was with us at the open house on Black Friday. Judson, my husband, and then I'm hoping to get a third body in. He hasn't completely said yes, but we'll have 3 men, all varying sizes, to practice. So it's a good opportunity to learn how to throw punches, to learn how to throw your weight around, and you get to do it with 3 dudes that are willing participants.
Definitely not something that will connect us to Aether. However, very, very important for keeping yourself safe, and also, sharing that knowledge with other people.
Yeah, and to me it's important just so that with it being darker now, and it's just been on my heart a lot to keep us safe at the studio and to create an environment and a space where we can learn how to be safe. So we're already learning how to move our bodies and to get a deeper relationship with the body, with the self, with the space between the spaces, that ether. And so that's a fantastic practice, but it's also important to know how to do self-defense. But that brings me to something that I was wanting to talk about. In one of the pictures of Shiva, who's a deity, he's seen seated, and his eyes are neither opened, but they're also not closed. They're kind of just like partially there. And I loved the symbolism as I read about it, and it was explained as humans, we're supposed to be present here. We're supposed to know what's going on here. We're not monks living, on the side of a cliff. We're householders. But so our eyes can't be closed, only looking internally. And for yoga, it's self-realization and only looking at that calm space. So we can't have our eyes all the way closed, but we can't also have our eyes all the way open, so where we're all in the world, not paying attention at all to the space. And I thought that the image of the half-closed eyes was a perfect embodiment of being in that space. Being in that space. You're here, but you're also aware.
I've read some things about that, the eyes, because that's how you're supposed to be in meditation. The eyes are supposed to be like Shiva's eyes.
Not all the way open, but not all the way closed. You're aware, but you're not all into the earth right now, but you're also not in the ether either.
Also, on another random note,
Squirrel.
Yeah. Is the quintessence is the Western word for ether.
Oh yeah,
because it means perfection.
Oh, that's deep.
Yeah,
that's deep. It is from whence all things were from. It's perfect, right. And everything else came from it.
Yeah, and so as we close out the year, close out our 90-day challenge. Of course, we'll have new challenges for the new year that will, it's all about trying to find that place of perfection through our practice, but also connecting to that perfect, because we are perfect. We were created in the image, and ether really connects us to, we're all perfect, even if we have 3 toes. We don't get labeled with all these things until we're here.
Yep.
We don't come here with that.
Yep. It's very true. And it's like my daughter, who's 4, is in the last several months only now becoming aware of the differences, and she'll say, what's wrong with that lady? We ran across somebody with Parkinson's. It was different than what she had seen. And I said, there's nothing wrong with that lady. She just has a sickness. There's nothing wrong. So it just goes to show how, as children, we don't know any of that. Right. We don't know the colors. We don't know any of these differences. And it's, as we grow up, we learn about them, and we create those categories.
Well, and we create separation.
Yeah.
But with our kids, sadly, we kind of have to, because not everyone is safe. It's not okay just to go with anybody.
Yeah.
But deep down below all of that, if we can remind them that there is a place where there is no separation, even though on the earth walk we do have to keep ourselves separate from things that aren't safe for us. There's something way down beneath that, and that's where ether lies.
I agree.
And thank you for teaching them that way. That's beautiful.
Aww.
I love that.
Aww.
I love your kids.
They're good little kids. I'll keep them around. So don't forget, we're going to be back here next week. We're going to kind of summarize all of the different, we talked about the 7 chakras and then the 5 elements over the last, I guess it's not been 90 days, so 80 days or so. And then next Wednesday, we're going to cap it all off. And then after the new year, Merritt and I have something super pumped, super exciting to announce. We kind of teased it out a little bit last week. We're going to officially have a new, is it going to be called, we haven't even named it. It's not going to be called a challenge.
We really need to get some ideas from you all.
Yeah, let us know.
We want to name this series of the podcast, and then Jennifer's going to do other podcasts too that will also have a name. So if you could let us know how you would describe our talks to others, I think that will help us to come up with a name that really embodies what we're trying to do, which is enrich, aid in wellness, energy medicine, yoga,
demystify,
educate. And that's a lot of what we're going to be looking at in the new year, is the philosophies of all these things.
I'm very excited. So
we can't reveal any more.
That you have to leave a comment. What do you know? What do you think about our conversations? What do you think what are some good names or good words that you could use to summarize what we're doing?
Yes.
And then
how would you describe it to a friend? If you were trying to get a friend to watch, how would you describe
it? Or listen. And then she kind of alluded a little bit. I have been slowly and behind the scenes working on converting these conversations from video to MP3, some of the other videos that we have on YouTube, and I am building up a library. The Thrive Yoga and Wellness online will have a podcast. It will hopefully be launching in January. Hopefully January 1. I'm not sure if I've got enough content lined up for it. So we'll be launching on Anchor, which is a self-publishing. Is supposed to be the easiest way to publish a podcast. So you'll get to have all of the conversations that we've had up to now, and then we will put the conversations that we have every week here going on onto the podcast, so you'll be able to stream it from your car when you're working out. You'll get to listen to us. And the best thing about it is because we're such a tight-knit community, you can have direct say in what it is that we're talking about.
Yes.
So let us know if there's something that you're curious about. Let us know if there's something you'd like our opinions on.
And if there's a topic that you would like to sit and talk with Jennifer about, like I do, it's so much fun, then, let us know, because we're looking for that.
Yep. We would love to have other visitors. We were so thankful when Jennifer came and visited us for the water element, and hopefully we can get her to come back. She will be teaching us in January a lot about Ayurveda, so I'm hoping to have her back. And I also am trying to get Jess, our acupuncturist, to bring in some of the Chinese medicine part of these conversations in. So Jess will be joining us soon. And I'm even trying to get David.
Oh, yes.
Merritt's husband, to come and talk, because he loves
He doesn't know yet. Don't tell him.
Oops.
Don't tell him. You know he's going to watch this.
Love you, David. I may have put you on the spot. Merritt calls me the spiritual gangster bully, right? Is that the right word?
But I know. Let's change that bully language. That was...
I like to encourage folks to do things, and so it's okay. I'm okay with it. This never would have been possible. Merritt never wanted to be in front of the camera.
Jennifer definitely helped me break out of my comfort zone.
And doesn't she do a great job?
But she also just wouldn't leave me alone about it. Like, I mean, I tried my best to hide and be like, no, I do my videos a different way. She wouldn't have any part of it. So here I am.
So that's the spiritual gangster bully part, and it's been good. I think you've been awesome. I could never have done this alone.
Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun learning all of these things, and I hope you have enjoyed learning them as well. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let us know what you think we should call these conversations.
Yes.
Let us know if there's something you want to talk about and you want to hear. And then don't forget, hopefully in January, you'll be able to listen to us on all the major podcast networks, Apple, all those other ones like Libsyn, all those things. That will be coming soon in January, I hope. Fingers crossed. And so until then, you guys, it is almost Christmas. Christmas will be...
We are winding down the year.
We are. Is it Christmas next Wednesday or is it next Thursday?
It's next...
It is next Wednesday.
I think it's Wednesday.
So we will probably go ahead and have the podcast or this video. We'll probably go ahead and release it on Wednesday. Merritt won't have her meditation that night because it is Christmas night. But we'll be back, rip-roaring to go the first week. Nope, on January 1st, we are also closed. So it'll be 2 weeks more before we have meditation. And she'll just kind of combine probably everything we talk about, wouldn't you think?
Yes.
So join us on Wednesdays for Wamabaga Wednesdays when we look at the other side of the yoga practice, our physical and meditative, all the different sides of it, and let us know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a blast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. And I guess
Namaste.
You'll go in peace. Namaste.